Hello again everyone, Edwin Leonard back once again in this YouTube astrological segment. I'm going to be talking about Mercury, Sextile, or Trine, Chiron in a natal chart. Now some of you may remember when I first started my YouTube astrology channel, I did a series on the aspects in the natal chart. They were a little bit concise and some people may have referred to them as snappy, so what I decided to do was make another series on them in which the videos would be a little bit longer and more descriptive. So anyway, first thing up is if you have Mercury, Sextile, or Trine, Chiron in a natal chart, it may manifest in being easy to communicate and articulate, which is Mercury, about your emotional and physical wounds, which is Chiron. Now, if you have Chiron in Aquarius as an example, emotional wounds and suffering may be tied in. Maybe there's difficulty in ingratiating oneself with society. One may feel ostracized by society, by others. It could be maybe expressing innovation or ingenuity. There may be difficulties in groups, clubs, organizations. If there's there may be physical wounds. It may be tied in with the ankles, the shins, the calves, nerves, circulation as some examples. If say if Chiron is in Virgo, as another example, emotional wounds may be tied in, could be having difficulty seeing, the details in things, maybe issues with diagnosing, analyzing things. Maybe there's health related issues. Well, actually specifically if there were any physical related suffering, wounds connected with Chiron and Virgo, it may be something associated with the spleen, the intestines, the pancreas. It could be abdominal issues as some examples. Also too, you may readily be able to put the mind, which is Mercury, on helping and healing others, which is Chiron. So if you have Chiron and Aries as an example, helping and healing others, it could simply be encouraging others to stand up for themselves. It could be standing up for those people, being willing could be encouraging them to confront people when it's necessary. It could be matters pertaining to leadership, prowess and ability. Maybe encouraging them to be in an Aries related field they may want to pursue, which can include working in speech pathology or something with physiology. It could be combat sports, which can include karate, boxing, judo, wrestling as some examples. Now also too, if you have either of these aspects in your natal chart, another way it may be expressed is that any issues that would involve the hands, the arms, nerves, lungs, or breathing, which is Mercury, would less likely, I would say, to exacerbate any emotional suffering, which is Chiron. So let's say, if you have any issues with what I described before connecting with Mercury. Now, let's say, if your Chiron is in Capricorn and there's been some emotional suffering connected with the career, business, social status, stature in life, one's reputation, finding structure and discipline, it'd be, those physical related issues at least would likely not, exacerbate or worsen, the emotional suffering that one may be dealing with. And also too, I would think, the other, conversely, the emotional suffering would less likely exacerbate any possible issues connected with the hands, the arms, the nerves, lungs, or breathing. So another thing too about these aspects and how it may manifest in the natal chart, it could be auspicious for short journeys, which is Mercury, in order to deal with depleted self-esteem, which is Chiron. Now, the thing about this is if you have, say, Chiron in Taurus as an example, issues connected with depleted self-esteem, maybe tied into one's monetary situation or possessions, resources. There may be issues, with persistence, in some cases stick-to-itiveness, being able to put one's foot down, figuratively speaking, when necessary. And, the thing about, it could be self-reliance as well. So those are some things, that, as an example, how that could work out. Now, another thing, too, about these aspects is that there may be little difficulty in terms of thinking, which is Mercury, about, one's deepest wound, and maybe being able, to formulate, doing something which, which might help resolve, that issue. If there's, let's say, if Chiron, is in Sagittarius as an example, the deepest wound somebody may be enduring, it could be just, issues connected with expanding horizons, going outside the box. Maybe it's issues, with college or higher education. Maybe it's about just difficulties in, expressing, exuberance or enthusiasm, and being optimistic and hopeful about things. It may be something, with religion or some religious congregation that one, had become involved with. As some examples, some cases it could be the law, because Sagittarius has a connection with that. Now, another thing too about Mercury sextile or trine Chiron in a natal chart, it could also indicate, that communication, writing, manual dexterity, which is Mercury, may be beneficial in terms of dealing, with just the general suffering, which is Chiron. And you would say, well, how could one really be benefiting the other? Well, sometimes just simply communicating about things can, help alleviate the suffering, and trying to, resolve it through conversation with others, that could help you deal with it. Writing things down that are, associated, with the suffering. Manual dexterity, that could just be, doing something with auto or refrigeration mechanics. That could be like a distraction, for whatever reason that could help you deal, with any, the pain, the anguish, the suffering connected with Chiron. Now, let's say if Chiron is in Gemini as an example, that suffering may be tied in with simply, difficulty, in diversifying, being able, to, it may be things with versatility, or issues just with communication in general, one's cerebral, intellectual ability, being able to articulate things. It could be even short journeys, as some examples. Now, another thing too is that these aspects, I would say, could be advantageous to find that key, which is Chiron, to alleviate, any suffering, any pain and anguish that one may be dealing with in connection with the Chiron placement. Chiron, in Aries, the key, for example, if there's issues with expressing leadership prowess or ability, it might just simply be understanding that one can lead by example, just being themselves and inspire others, to do, to express leadership in that manner, showing enterprise and initiative. And the Chiron and Virgo could be about, if there's any issues with wanting to be, infallible or perfect. It could just be about an understanding that just, acceptance of not being perfect is the way, to maybe being closer, to perfect. So as some examples. And another thing too is that siblings, cousins, and neighbors, which is Mercury, may be beneficial, in terms of dealing, with the pain, with anguish that is connected with the Chiron placement. If Chiron is in the zodiac sign Cancer, as an example, it could be matters, pain and anguish may be tied in with one's home, family life, matters with safety and security. It could be in expressing emotion or dealing with, being, sensitivity issues. As some examples, being overly could be sensitive to criticism, or ridicule. And another thing, too, is that the early education, which is Mercury, may be very positive in terms of dealing with healers, which is Chiron. If Chiron is in Leo as an example, there may be, maybe you're looking for healers at that time. It might be tied in with, extroversion, or maybe matters with, you could say, creativity, being lauded, praised for one's, for one's works, getting the attention. Maybe there's issues with not getting the attention for something that one felt he or she truly deserved. As some examples, those healers may be, people that help you, may be very beneficial. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, Edwin Leonard saying, stay well.